Oh, this is dumb, actually. It is casters. I changed my mind. Let's not do that one.
Must be the other background. That
Yeah, you're right. You're right. All right. Um, in that case, Golden Guardians versus Optic.
all right. Sounds good. All right.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another fantastic League of Legends game in the NA Academy Summer Split. My name is, of course, Daniel the Friendly Headcrab, and with me today I have Clovis Zivlock Wong.
Yeah, we're loading in here. I believe it is patch 813. And playing with all the glorious champions that are strong in that patch, namely Heimerdinger and Nocturne, going right into the bans.
Right into the bans, you can see that Heimerdinger you mentioned already banned out. Maybe not NA's favorite champion in Rift Rivals, but they don't want to deal with it here.
Yeah, one thing I want to note that's quite interesting here is that all these bans are pretty standard, make a lot of sense. But interestingly, Optic Gaming choosing to ban Aatrox from the blue side. So that implies to me that they don't have a great Aatrox pilot right now, because I have the impression that Aatrox is a really strong champion this patch. Leaving it up means that they're going to prioritize Kindred early on, but pass away two potential power picks back to Golden Guardians.
So we've been seeing a lot of Kindreds lately. I believe we even saw a Kindred last week played in the ADC position. So there's been a lot of Kindred play. Do you know why Kindred is coming back into the meta?
Well, part of why she's seeing play is that as compositions depend less on having a dedicated marksman bottom, it frees you out compositionally if you get to run a Kindred in the jungle. You still have that long-range sustained damage presence, and she snowballs really hard. So, for example, Kindred's actually quite good at punishing a funnel composition because she gets to free farm her jungle. She gets to invade relatively freely to pick up stacks, knowing that there's not a dedicated jungle on the enemy team. You see their funnel or mid, you're just like, okay, we're going to walk in your jungle, take my Kindred stacks, and you get like 12, 13 stack Kindreds by the end of a longer game. So because of that, Kindred just has a lot of pressure against the other kinds of conventional team comps that we see. However, Kindred does not perform so well against Swain, which does get picked up by Golden Guardians here. Swain has a lot of pressure, can utilize the Kindred ult against Kindred's own team using the ultimate of his own.
We see that these teams are just flying through the picks and bans already going into the second rotation, and with both teams picking up their jungler and potentially support, we see a lot of top lane focus from these bans.
Yeah, 4 top laners get banned out. One thing we have going here for Golden Guardians is that they have this Shen Swain double flex pick. The Swain could go into either solo lane or into the bot lane position. Shen can go top lane or support. So that gives them a lot of freedom in how they dictate the second phase of this draft. Optic, on their hand, locked in pretty heavily into their roles. Kindred's pretty much going to be jungle guaranteed, and Jin, Tom, pretty clearly going bot lane.
As Optic finishes out their composition, it doesn't really have all of the flex potential that we have been seeing, but it does seem like a very strong composition traditionally. A very strong front-to-back team fight between the Jhin and the Kindred. A lot of just background damage, a nice beefy tank line, of course, with that Tom to keep them safe. It's going to be a very hard team to try to team fight against.
Right. Yeah, Optic Gaming prioritizing building a strong strategy of their own instead of going for lane counter picks using flexes. And we see that as a result on their composition as well. They have so much crowd control. They have really great tools to function with and operate with. Galio has a lot of synergy with Kindred. You can cast Hero's Interest over the Lamb's Respite, punish the enemy champions who try to stand in at the end. However, we look at Golden Guardians, their composition has less of a front line. They don't have as many tools, but they have some really interesting lane matchups going on in favor for them. They have the Xin Zhao, who has a lot of dueling potential on Kindred. They have Rumble, who can push Poppy in early, and they have Swain, who has a lot more pressure with his range auto attacks on Galio in the early game. Even if Galio can wave clear, Swain still has a lot of 2v2 presence. So we'll see if Golden Guardians is able to play around winning lane matchups, use their flex picks and counter picks to their fullest effect, and see if they can dismantle Optic Gaming before Optic Gaming can reach this point where they can take the front-to-back team fight that they want.
Now, these pauses are notoriously long, so I'm just going to take this little cursor and I'm going to take this little red dot and just move it right along that beautiful little line. And you see the many minutes we get to skip. And ladies and gentlemen, just like that, we are going to jump into the game on the blue side. We have Optic Gaming with Alorim in the top side, Fnatic on the jungle, Palafox in the mid lane, Eclipse and Gate taking down the bot lane.
And on the side of Golden Guardians, we have Zig in the top lane Rumble. Potluck on jungle, Xin Zhao, Bob Bobkin, Bob
I do Bob Quinn.
Bob Quinn on a Swain mid, Benji on Ezreal bottom, and Sheep in the bottom lane support Shen.
Neither of these teams looking to go for any sort of cheesy early invade. Everyone just wanting in that 5-point star position to make sure everything stays safe.
Yeah, a little interesting to see that there's not a lot of early wards going down, but as I say that, those wards get dropped in the top side river, so both teams trying to track the enemy jungler, and both of them should see that the teams are interested in starting top side. Kindred, however, changes their mind. Fnatic is heading down to red buff instead, trying to mix it up.
Yeah, it was interesting to see that neither team was really able to get a deep ward, and because Golden Guardians saw Fnatic in the top side for Optic Gaming, they might see a little bit of an advantage for Fnatic if he's able to get a little bit of a surprise level 2 gank bot lane, or maybe that nice level 3 gank in the top side if it's not expected from Zig. But the bot side of Optic is late, so the Golden Guardians should be able to figure out where Fnatic is.
Yep, they see that leash. Poppy doesn't try to fake it at all, and pretty much everyone should know that Kindred's are bomb side. Ezreal and Shen get a pushing advantage early on, but I don't expect too much to happen with this Tom Kent Shen bottom lane opposition. Neither of those support have a ton of aggressive options against each other, so I expect this Jhin and Ezreal to sort of farm it out. They both have teleport, so it's unlikely anyone's going to go down anytime soon in the 2v2.
They don't have a ton of options on their own because Benji isn't really able to initiate with Sheep, but if Potluck comes down to the bot side for the Golden Guardians, with the Shen taunt, if it does land, that seems like it could be a very aggressive and threatening bot lane dive.
Yep, so teams taking opposite side crabs here. Kindred on the top side crab, Syndra on the bottom side crab, and Kindred, Fnatic's going to be really happy about this one because feels good man, he got his Kindred stack on the top side crab. Skillful player that he is.
RNG coming in huge for Optic Gaming. Clearly, if they win, it is due to luck, not to player skill.
Right, something like that. I wonder, I don't actually know when the first mark appears. I wonder if he saw that the mark appeared and then chose to switch to red buff. No, there's no way you would be able to know until the crab spawns.
Yeah, it takes a little bit longer than that.
Right, so just fortunate timing on his part. He gets a good route and invades the enemy Krugs, which is interesting. He's going to put a lot of pressure on the Sinjao, who goes back into his own jungle, doesn't feel safe invading, and Sinjao's going to be a little bit behind off this. Kindred even taking the Raptors away from Pollock, so Fnatic getting a great early start to this game, using the priority that Galio gave him at this early point in the lane matchup to pressure and put advantage into the jungle position.
Did Kindred get the Raptors? I didn't actually see that they went down to her.
Oh, did they?
I think she just got down the deep ward. I think he might have actually already farmed them.
14 CS. Oh, you're right. Never mind. So the Raptors were absent. Kindred loses a little time but gets information on Sinjao. She'll be able to reclaim tempo as she moves back into her jungle. So basically the advantage is an information advantage. Thank you for catching that error on my part.
Little bit unfortunate for her talking about those marks. The other one showing up on Jin Zhao's Grom. That's going to be a little bit difficult for Kindred to find in this game.
That one's going to go away. This is quite surprising to me is that we saw Golden Guardians having a lot of advantage in the draft with those flex picks. They tried to get matchups for themselves, but these counter picks not really panning out for them in this early phase of the game. In fact, we see Poppy with an advantage and a CS lead in the top side of the map, and Galio, although he hasn't necessarily been beating Swain in terms of farm, has been having the pushing advantage using the really powerful wave clear tool of Winds of War to just shove his lane out, not have to interact with Swain too much. So because of that, that's giving Fnatic a lot of time to scale and farm up.
And part of this, meanwhile, she goes in for a taunt, but Gate is just going to pull up Eclipse. Meanwhile, the CC going to be blocked by Jhin to keep Sheep away from that stun. So going to be all right there, but some amount of this early laning lead from Optic may be, despite the draft built by Golden Guardians, Optic has been playing very well. They are making their fight for the second place in the league at the moment, and their player skill, despite matchup loss, might be a testament to how well they're doing in this competition. Yep.
See Kindred with a little bit of downtime here. Not a lot to do, and unfortunately for her, her mark spawns at the Raptors that Sinjao had just finished. So not a lot going to happen, but we could see a 2v2
Both
junglers
starting. Showing up in the mid side. Palafox is going to get ruined up, but Bob Quinn does not know. Here's the Kindred coming in from the right side. Potluck is ticking down and goes down for first blood. Bob Quinn now needs to run for his life. Flash expended, but Fnatic is right behind him, ticking. One more auto attack brings him down.
A great 2v2 from the side of Optic, a nice technical play on their part, but what really came down to this play was all that early vision that Kindred got earlier in the match. Fnatic had that ward by Raptor, and it persisted for long enough to spot Xin Zhao pathing from the Krugs, which Fnatic had counter jungle and knew were down, pathing toward Raptor. So because of that and all the information Fnatic had on Xin Zhao's route, they knew that Xin Zhao had to be going for a gank in the top side of the map, and Kindred, identifying that Galio was extended, played that bait out perfectly.
Meanwhile, Zig is going to find Fnatic in the jungle. Potluck over the side, ticking down. Fnatic used his flash earlier. There is nowhere for him to run. He is going to fall down, and that feels bad, man.
A very greedy crab attempt. It did have the mark, and I believe Fnatic did get it. But his top laner did not have any priority. It's really hard for Alarm to get top priority against a Rumble at this point. The game Rumble has 3 points in Flame Spitter. That's just a really powerful lane control tool. Most top lane tanks can't contest the wave against Rumble with level 3 Flame Spitter.
And now we actually see Eclipse and Gate zoning Benji and Sheep off of this wave. Despite Golden Guardians having the bot lane counter pick, they are actually losing the spot side fairly severely.
Yeah, they have about even CS, but they had the advantage in the push starting quite early on. They just haven't been able to pressure Jhin at all. It's just really hard for Shen to force engages against the Tahm Kench, knowing that Tahm Kench can just yoink his AD carry back out and carry him to safety. So Shenton is a very high commitment spell in this match. And wow, Galio posturing down here to completely zone Ezreal and Shen off of this minion wave.
And this is just such a hard time for Ezreal. Looking at the first back timing, he's coming back with only a tier. Jhin comes back with a BF sword and has so much damage.
Yeah, definitely a stronger component in this lane. Ezreal does have the freedom to spam spells, but before that tier's really stacked, that doesn't mean a whole lot. It's not that much additional mana on that first recall. So that implicit threat from Galio, who maintains mid-priority, uses the threat of his roam to zone Ezreal off of a creep wave. It's just going to put Jhin into a really great position here.
And this is problematic for the Golden Guardians because, as we were speaking about in the draft phase, Optic has a really strong team fight. And I would even go so far as to say, due to the 2 AD carries in their composition, potentially a better scaling late game as well, despite the Shen showing up for the Golden Guardians. So the Golden Guardians really want to be getting some form of an advantage right now with their winning lanes, but that just isn't happening for them yet.
Yeah, Xin Zhao tries to go for that mid gank earlier, doesn't really pan out for him, and because of that, Galio, who normally doesn't do that well in this matchup, has had the freedom to just wave clear without having to interact with Swain, who outtrades him. Another thing to note, though, is that Golden Guardians isn't out of the picture yet. They still have a really big mid-game wake-up. They have Trendy Miramon at Ezreal at 2 items. They have a potential 2-item Swain, the potential 2-item Rumble, who famously scales really well with just flat Magic Pen and a Liandry's. So if Golden Guardians can just keep this in a sort of even lane state, not let too much happen, just farm up for the 2-item spike, that's still a big window they have to play around before Kindred is relevant and before Jhin has the crit items he needs to teamfight with.
We will definitely look forward to that chance as Golden Guardians want to break open this game. But for now, we're just going to look at everyone as they gather their CS and maybe look for some fun ganks. Speaking of fun ganks, what is Optic doing right now?
Well, they're getting their deep wards, and do want to throw them commendations to that is that part of why Optic has shown so much control over this game is that they've had so much extra information. If we look at the bottom side vision control that they have 3 pink wards in the river. There's no way Xin Zhao is going to be ganking bottom side, so top lane he does
Potluck
go.
coming with the Shin ultimate. The teleport is coming down for Optic, and it's ultimate from Poppy just ends that gank where it stands. Eclipse, meanwhile, is going to go onto Benji. A little bit of anti-synergy as he eats the Benji out of the way of the first bullet, but does not matter. The last 3 hit, and that is the Ezreal going down.
Yeah, and with his death, likely bottom tower going down as well. There's no one here to defend it. There are no globals available except for Rumble's teleport, and he needs to stay up here for now. If he teleports in the bottom lane, it's just going to be an instant dive. There's no way Zig can live 1v3, so they're going to try and answer the topside tower, but it's unclear if they're even going to get it.
Yeah, Rumble not necessarily the best at pushing those turrets, and looking at this mid lane, we've seen Palafox just shove consistently into Bob Quinn. And I gotta feel sorry for Bob Quinn, because you saw his abilities go off onto Palafox, and Palafox just did not care. That Galio is just far too tanky to give any sort of nonsense to the abilities of the Swain before he starts scaling a little more.
Yeah, Galio having a lot of presence. He doesn't necessarily scale well in terms of tankiness because he's generally forced into more of an ability power based path, and he has trouble getting a lot of his damage off just because it's not as reliable. He doesn't have a lot of range safety. He has to be really in the thick of things as a relatively squishy champion to make things happen. But he just has so much crowd control and so much utility, so much burst damage that as long as he's able to get in range of position, either with flash or with a good flank or with hero's entrance, he can just provide a lot of impact at all stages of the game.
And if there is one thing I've learned from casting for UCI Esports, it's that sometimes, if played well, Galio can do a lot of damage. Not one to be underestimated.
Those are some meaty base damages, and his ratios are nothing to scoff at either, especially if you get that Roa, which I think Palafox is going to be going toward. I think it's unlikely it'll be Abyssal Mask, but it's definitely a possibility given that Golden Guardians is showing a double AP composition. Just that Roa is really important for maintaining ability power to keep your wave clear breakpoints.
And you were talking about the deep vision and just the control that Optic had of this game, and that is just going to net them a Rift Herald. The Ezreal ult not even channeled until the objective was already taken, and that's a nice free pickup for Optic Gaming.
Yep, another objective to reward their excellent vision. And they're just going to be playing for another tower. They've swapped both dual lanes to the top lane. A swap initiated by Jhin and Tom Kench since they want to break another tier 1 tower. And a swap that will be matched by Benji and Sheep because they're not really confident in Rumble playing this 1v2 out. So I think this is the right choice on both these teams' parts. We're just going to see the 2v2 move its way to the top side of the map, given that Dragon is not going to be an objective anytime soon.
It's interesting to me. You can see a lot of question mark pings coming down from the Golden Guardians, along with Benji and Sheep backing off. It seems like they think Kindred might be nearby. Galio roaming just a little bit down from the bot side strikes so much fear into the heart of the Golden Guardians. That heroic entrance showing so much threat. Sheep is going to go dash forward for the taunt, but not get eclipsed. Potluck is in the area. He might look for a gank, but does not actually get spotted out by that ward. It is hidden, going to come in now. She flashes forwards and does get eclipsed. The Gra'it comes up to save him a little longer. Flash forward, he does survive, and both of Optic survives the fight, though many flashes burned.
Yeah, the power of Tom Kench coming into play. He gets his AD carrier right on out of there, and Golden Guardians kind of grasping at straws here. They get a decent cooldown trade, but Shen has to flash for that. It's not a great trade. Shen flash is a really valuable cooldown because of how it combos with his taunt. And Golden Guardians, they're kind of reaching the point where they're trying to make something happen, but they just can't force through the tools.
Palafox flash forward onto Ziggs. Fnatic is here. Bob Quinn ticking down the hourglass to keep him alive. The ultimate has been channeled, but the bot side is here as well. Sheep is not enough to save the mid laner of the Golden Guardians, and suddenly the mid tower is under ferocious attack, but the ultimate from Rumble is going to try to clear this wave, and now suddenly Alarum is in a tricky situation, but his team is there to back him up, and so is the Rift Herald. That means this tower is still going to fall, and that's the mid tower for the Optic Gaming.
Yeah, in the global pressure war, the advantage falling in favor of Optic. It starts as a 2v1 with the
final curtain coming out for Benji, but an arcane shift over the wall keeps him completely safe.
You gotta scoot on out there, lose a couple minions, but he walks away with his life, which is probably the bigger concern at this point. If we take a look at the global pressure, I think there's a kind of interesting difference here. That we saw that 2v1 turn into a 4v2. Shen tried to get Bobjin out of there, but unfortunately Tom Kench was having none of that. He ults in, Poppy teleports in, and they raise Golden Guardians. They say if you can teleport your friend in, but we have friends as well.
Potluck goes in for a scrap, but I don't know if he wants it. Bobquin flashes in just to secure the kill. Bobquin on the side trying to show up for his team, but he is too late. Not completely sure what Potluck was thinking there.
Yeah, the Golden Guardians are just sort of collapsing on themselves here. They seem to be in a bit of a panic, trying to force plays that don't really need to be forced or just are not working out. They're not coordinating, they don't have the man advantage, and they just aren't able to have the information they need to make good plays. The vision control from Optic really playing out into this, pressuring Golden Guardians and forcing them to make plays with low expected value, making them take risks they don't need to take.
And with that, the outer ring of turrets has been cracked for the Golden Guardians, and now it is suddenly the slightly more inner ring that is the next to be focused. What is that ring called? Is it just inner?
Yeah,
Inner turrets?
outer towers, inner towers. I call them tier 2 towers sometimes.
Tier 2 towers on the next ones to be aggressed upon. You did see that the Rift Herald got a crack onto that tower, one charge, bringing it to about half its health already.
Yep. And Benji trying to get a tower of his own, but unfortunately for him is in a bit of a pickle. Optic keeping him pretty trapped.
He is trying to run, doesn't dedicate it to Eclipse. Poor AD carry does not get it for his own, and now suddenly it seems that Sheep might be the next one to be the focus. Gets out with just a sliver of health as the crowd control runs out.
Looks like Potluck's trying to get Dragon on the other side to take advantage of Optic's commitment to the top side of the map, but I'm not sure if he can do it fast enough before Optic arrives to contest.
It's already down to half HP as 3 members come down. He's going to have to flee for his life, though. And Optic Gaming is going to say, hey, thanks for the leash. We'll take this dragon now. And they're going to be real happy with that.
Yep, another freebie there for Optic Gaming. They get a lot of efficiency on the rotation. They shove in the mid wave. They deny the dragon. They take dragon of their own. And they're just going to look to not quite reset, but in fact go back to mid lane to reestablish priority.
Yeah, Optic has just been all around this map, and we've said it already, but I'm going to say it again. Golden Guardians have not been able to keep up.
Yeah, they're definitely in a position where they needed to have an early advantage to stay even, and instead, Optic came out of the early game with a pretty comfortable position. It was just a slow, steady game. Fnatic doing a great jungle pathing in the early game to control Xin Zhao and get himself into a comfortable position. Now, Kindred sitting pretty at 4-1-1, to Xin Zhao's 1-2, in addition to having nearly a 20 CS advantage. So just in the jungle position alone, Optic's just really comfortable here.
And one of the scary things about some of these fights is we've not actually seen as much global pressure as Optic can bring to the field. Some of the fights, specifically the mid lane fight, it was Palafox who initiated. But if Optic really wanted to, they could have members pretty much everywhere on the map and then collapsing as Palafox ults in, followed by the warp from Gate. They just have so much global pressure, but it's actually the Golden Guardians starting off the fight. The consume from Gate keeps Eclipse alive a little bit longer as Optic seems to maybe try to turn this around. Gate runs forward, but might just die for his trouble. Alicorn over the side gets a nice stun on Potluck, but then is just going to stay alive as the heroic entrance comes in. Now suddenly the Golden Guardians are in a sticky situation. Eclipse trying to survive, but does go down, and it's a 4v3 as Optic is falling down. The ult comes down from Kindred. Palafox gets stunned to the walls. Fnatic is dealing so much damage on the side of the fight. Palafox goes in, but meanwhile Zig is going to take down his back line. Alicorn now just has to run for his life, but Benji is going to be able to take that kill for his pleasure, and that fight is going to go solidly in the favor of the Golden Guardians.
Yeah, we finally see that 2-item, 1.5 item spike I mentioned earlier. They're not quite their 2 items, but they have a bunch of really critical item completions on their mages. They have Morel Nomicon, Leandri, Sork Boot on Ziggs, having a ton of Magic Pen for that equalizer, which we saw chunk out 2 members of Optic right at the start of the fight. And we have that Swain with the Roa completion as well. Ezreal with Muramana Sheen, excuse me. Zig.
Might have stayed a little bit too long. Eclipse just going to take him down. And that's going to definitely stall out some of the efforts from the Golden Guardians.
Yeah. A little greedy on his part, but overall still really great for Golden Guardians. They finally cracked top tier 1 tower. That's a really great objective. So much gold going back in the pockets of Golden Guardians, in addition to all the shutdowns they collected, especially onto that Kindred, who was having a really nice KDA before that fight and still doing pretty strong, but shutdown golds are worth a lot of gold this patch, and it's going to give Golden Guards a little bit of extra gas, see if they can keep up this momentum and restabilize with their 2-item spikes. Rumble having Leandri, Morel, Nomicon completed. See if we get a big equalizer to turn things around.
And Golden Guardians really needed to win that fight, because if they can't win that fight, I don't know what fight they can win. As far as location and how that fight broke out, I cannot think of a better situation for the Golden Guardians other than something like a 5-man equalizer. But the equalizer completely chunking out the bot lane of Optic Gaming. Optic Gaming slowly trickling in the jungle position, where this is a Golden Guardians team that you do not want to be fighting with. The Swain and Zig in close quarters was just a nightmare for Optic to try to fight that battle. So I do not think that necessarily means that the Golden Guardians has a huge advantage. And
Oh, a
a
huge
four-man
flash!
taunt, as you can see, running forward. The final count does so much damage. Optic Gaming charging forward. The Golden Guardians fleeing for their lives to go down right off of the bat, and Optic might be looking towards the Baron right now.
Yeah, Palafox charges up his taunt and just flashes over that wall, setting up a great initiation for his team. Ziggs gets a pretty good equalizer to sort of break up that fight, but Optic doesn't care. They just wade straight through that lava carpet and continue to pump out damage. They win that fight, and they're going to look to convert into Baron.
A beautiful initiation, but are the Golden Guardians going to be able to prevent this? They are looking good on the health pool, but Palafox on the side looks to make some stop. Sheep ults in. It's a 4v5 in the Baron pit, and you can see the Baron does go down. Kindred takes it. Bobquin now needs to run for his life as he falls as well. The ultimate comes down for Kindred to keep her team alive. Sheep is going to fall in the pit. So is Ziggs. Now Benji is going to be the target of Fnatic on the side. Potluck might have to fall as well, running from gate for his life tower to keep him safe, but that is a 4-0 in favor of Optic, and they get the Baron.
Wow, a good attempt by Golden Guardians trying to disengage that. They're strong, they can look to fight, but unfortunately Optic gets just too strongly engaged. They get the pick, they convert into Baron, and Golden Guardians has no ultimates left available to punish the Kindred ultimate. So when Lancer Spike goes down, they just get crushed in the pit. There's no way for them to escape. Palafox even appears behind them to just force them to commit into that fight. It's a huge pickup for Optic Gaming, and it's really looking grim for Golden Guardians at this point.
2-3 turrets go down. They keep the inhibitor for now, but that Baron just started. Optics have another push with it, and it's going to be very hard for the Golden Guardians to try to keep these towers up.
Yeah, they're going to have to fight off this Baron siege and see how much they can afford to give up. They are still playing around item spikes. They have 2 items now on their mages as well as their Ezreal, who's stacking up his 2nd tier as we speak. But it's going to be rough because Kindred has had so much tempo, so much control this game that it's going to be sitting on a lot of stacks.
Not only stacks, sitting about 30 jungle CS over Potluck, 7, 2, and 6. This Kindred is actually a monster.
Yeah, a huge threat here. We see a bit of a CS advantage in Golden Guardian solo lanes, but I'm just not sure if that's going to be enough. Especially with Lancer Spite, that's the huge pressure point for Golden Guardians, is that they need to use their AoE ultimates to set up a fight properly, the Swain ultimate and the Equalizer from Rumble respectively, but if both of those spells are down and Kindred ult is still up, the fight is just over. There's just no way for Golden Guardians to punish Fnatic for committing that Lancer Smite later on in the fight if they don't have any cooldowns left available to AoE Optic if they stand in the ring.
Meanwhile, the fight begins as just immediately one falls for the Golden Guardians. Zig isn't even having a life to use his ultimate. Towers falling, 2 inhibitors are going to go down on the side of the Golden Guardians, leaving only the top side. And really, Optic Gaming might even try to end the game here. They have the waves for it. There are only 3 up. Zig won't be up for another 20 seconds, but Optic might just take the safer route and just back on out, leaving the Golden Guardians to try to clean up their mess.
Yep, those 2 inhibitors are down for Golden Guardians. They're going to be trapped here in the base. Fortunately for them, Baron's still a pretty far ways away, so they're not going to have to deal with that with their bottom inhibitor down for at least a good while. But unfortunately for them, it means it's going to be really hard for them to move out of their base. They're just going to have to be content farming supers, shoving out waves really conservatively. If they ever overextend, Optic can use one of their many global movement spells at their disposal to punish. So Optic just in a great position here. They can farm build jungle, scale up, and Golden Guardian is under a lot of pressure now to try and make something happen to get themselves back in this game.
Speaking of extending, Ezreal is quiet deep in that bot side. There's not immediately someone there to punish him, and he does have teleport, but nonetheless, quite a risky maneuver.
Yeah, although he can teleport should a teamfight break out on top lane, that's not really what you want to be doing as a marksman, because your presence in a teamfight is pretty heavily correlated with how much time you're in that fight, because you're just constantly outputting damage as a marksman. If you're there late, that's a good chunk of potential DPS that you missed out during that fight. You're not like a tank who can show up late and then bop someone with crowd control, use all your cooldowns and be like, well, I'm just a meat shield now. So Ezreal intelligently choose the recall, start to help out with the wave clear, see if they can stabilize or create a favorable fight for themselves to get inhibitor respawns back.
And wave clear is something I want to talk about in this team because Golden Guardians has some, but no, the fight breaks out. Sheep is going to be on the front side being chunked down. The final curtain is going to call curtains for him as Optic Gaming takes down the last outer turrets. The ultimate is going to come down from Zig, blocking and splitting off Optic, but Palafox is here. Potluck is in the front side, pops the ultimate. This is it. Golden Guardians last stand, but they are already falling, and there might not be anything they can do to try to survive this game. It's just going to be cleanup duty for Optic Gaming as Zig almost dies in his own fountain. He's not going to, but that is not going to matter. The one kill was only brought by the fountain turret for the Golden Guardians. This game is just about over. Zig can only watch sadly as his last turrets fall. Sheep is here, but he can't do much either. The Nexus is going to be the next target after the Optic pads up their KDAs a little bit more. It is going to fall, and Optic is going to claim the game.
Yeah, and that's what a 10k gold lead looks like, ladies and gentlemen, because Golden Guardians, they put up a fight there at the end, but they're just down too many stats. They're down too many item completions, and there's just not a really great way for them to win that fight, barring Optic from egregiously misplaying. I do want to give a shout out to Fnatic and to Palafox, who had a great performance that game. Galio mitigated what can be a difficult early matchup by just shoving, keeping priority, and that just set Fnatic up for this great invade, an early Krug contest, followed up by great deep vision into the jungle, which let them track Xin Zhao throughout the entire early game. And that's all the tools they need to set up a great 2v2, win in the early game, and then just prevent Golden Guardians from ever getting off the ground.
Yeah, and between their excellent vision control, excellent use of global ultimates, and just general good performance, it was incredibly difficult for the Golden Guardians to try to use their power spikes. Except for the one fight from the Rumble surprise in the jungle, we did not see FlyQuest the Golden Guardians be able to use their abilities and use fights that would start in an advantage position for them. It was always the gold.
Have I been saying the wrong team name?
Yeah, as soon as this page loaded, I immediately just started saying the wrong team name. I'm going to keep this up.
It's Optic.
It was always Optic.
Yeah, it was Optic. Okay, yeah. Okay, we got it.
You threw me off. What you doing, man?
Yeah.
No, it's cool.
We good. We got it. Yeah.
It was always Optic who was using these powers to just dictate when the fights happened, and they always happened under their own terms. They used their pick abilities to start almost every single fight off with a number advantage as they took out members before Golden Guardians even had a chance to respond.
Yeah, for sure. I think there was a lot of missed opportunities from Golden Guardians, not necessarily in the game, but I think in Champion Select especially. They had a lot of opportunities to use their flex picks to get good lane matchups, and unfortunately that never really panned out. In fact, they ended up losing a little bit in a lot of their lane matchups without jungler intervention, and that just gave Fnatic the freedom to control Xin Zhao, follow him around, use vision to deny Xin Zhao, and Xin Zhao was put in this terrible position where he had losing pressure in 3 lanes on a champion that needs to snowball early on. And they just weren't able to dig themselves out of position. But I think it was possible for them to draft a slightly different composition. I'm not sure if they are unwilling to play funnel or if that's just not on the table for them. But a Swain bot lane flex could potentially pressure a Jin Tom Kench lane pretty aggressively in the early game.
Well done and well drafted by Optic Gaming. A few question marks to throw at the Golden Guardians. See how they handle that as this summer split goes on. But we're going to end it for today. Thank you so much, everyone who had joined us. I have, of course, been Daniel the Friendly Headcrab here with Clovis Sivlock Wong. And to everyone watching, I say this. Have a fantastic evening.